What's up, YouTube? It's the Action Figure Grader coming back to you with a vintage Kenner Star Wars market update. We've got everything from loose graded figures to mint on card items, baggies, a really good assortment of stuff. There were a lot of really primo Palatoy Tri-Logos that sold this past weekend. So we're going to dig into all of that. Before I do, let me say thank you to my Patreon supporters. You guys allow me to make more and better videos. If you're interested in becoming a Patreon supporter, it's patreon.com/actionfiguregrader. Let's go ahead and dig right in. We're going to start off with some loose graded figures. The first one is an AFA 80 textured cape Scar COO, so Scar, country of origin, Darth Vader. And these were produced in the Spanish factory, PBP. Now, it does have the new case style, and you can see the texture there on that cape. There are a number of different PBP Darth Vaders. You can get one with a textured cape, one with a glossy cape, and one with a cape with either glossy or it's glossy and textured depending on the side you're looking at the cape. So there are a lot of different variations, and that doesn't even include like the different COO variations. There's like a blob COO, the scar, and a smooth finish to the back of the leg. But this one is a textured cape Scar COO. It's labeled as a Kenner Star Wars figure, but it's really a PBP figure, in my opinion. This one sold for $154.50 plus $7 shipping. That's a pretty good price for a nice-looking Darth Vader, although I would argue that AFA needs to update their labeling. And whether it's a PBP or a POC, they label them all Kenner/PBP, which is incorrect in my opinion. We're going to dig into that in a little while with some other really nice Spanish figures. Here is a CAS 85 Plus Princess Leia, loose graded, really pretty item, and very high grade. I can't tell if this is the black hair or the brown hair. It looks brown to me, but what do I know? It doesn't have that on the label at all. I wish it did. But that one sold for $430 plus $5.89 shipping. And that's kind of been the premise of the channel here lately, folks, is that high-grade items, at least right now, they're still commanding high prices. And whether we see a dip in those, we'll see. It is a common figure. But it is tough to find a Leia in very high grade, 80, let's call it 85 and above. And whether we see a dip in prices or not, who knows? But that's just a really pretty Princess Leia. Speaking of very high-grade items, this was an uncirculated 90 Death Star droid. Now, it did have the older case style. As you can see, it's got that one blocky piece of acrylic, and it's not centered inside the case, so it is an older case, but it is an uncirculated 90 grade figure. So somebody sent in a beat-up mint-on card to get that uncirculated designation. AFA, CAS, and UKG no longer do that. CAS never did that, but AFA and UKG stopped that about 2019. I believe UKG did it even prior to that, but what an awesome loose graded figure. This one sold for $400 plus $16 shipping. Quite honestly, that's a pretty good price. I know that seems like a lot of money for a loose graded Death Star droid, but there's not many U90s out there, and that's one of those figures that's very tough to get in a high grade just because of the vac metallized finish. But what an awesome item. Next up, speaking of the PBP POC complaint I have, this is a POC Spanish PBP Leia Hoth, or it's a POC. It's the PBP factory merged with the POC factory in Spain in early 1980s, and after that they produced and manufactured and painted and assembled their own figures in the factory. But prior to that, when it was just the POC factory, they produced these figures, and they used Hong Kong parts. And so as you see on the label, it's labeled HK for the Hong Kong COO, so that you know it's the early Spanish figure. And I don't know why AFA continues to label these Kenner/PBP. It has nothing to do with PBP. It's really POC. I think it would be okay to say Kenner/POC because it was using Kenner parts from the Hong Kong factory. Anyway, it was a dark brown hair version, and it was at auction. It had the archival case, AFA 80. Really nice. I was so tempted to bid on this one. It's a beautiful example. $306.98 is a great deal. Whoever got this figure, congratulations, because you know, these early Spanish figures command high prices, and this is one in particular that's very tough to find in high grade without that modeling on the arms. You can see on the left arm here, it's got just a minute amount of spotting, and that's very common with the Spanish figures, even in low grade. You can see the spot at the elbow and then kind of at the shoulder joint. That's a very common defect, and to get one without much of that, very tough to do. And that's a really great price. I think that was a steal of a deal in my opinion. Another really interesting item is this one. This is the Spanish POC IG88 Pale Orange Eyes. Now, this particular figure came with a number of different color variations for the eyes. Usually it's the blood red eyes version. We just documented one that sold at auction that was a UKG 88, or excuse, UKG 85 of IG88, and had the blood red eyes that was labeled by UKG. This is the orange eye version, and it's a lot tougher to find this one. You can see here on the AFA label, again, it's labeled Kenner/PBP, but it is a Hong Kong Parts AFA 85. AFA 85. But the light orange eyes are much more difficult to find. Now, a subscriber also sent me photos of one where it had yellow eyes, and I have no idea if that's degraded paint, where the red or the orange eyes degraded to a yellow. I don't know the answer to that, but I've seen yellow, orange, and red, and so there are 3 different color variations to my knowledge. And this seller was good enough to even include pages from the Javier Ruy Lopez book on the Spanish figures, and you can see here where it does say that the eyes. There's another Spanish variation, middle of the page there, under the color palette. There's another Spanish variation with translucent pale orange eye color. So this is the much more difficult variation to find. It sold for $450 plus shipping, and I know who bought this because he and I were both debating whether to buy it. I had this one in my cart to buy twice, and I couldn't decide whether to buy it, and finally my buddy bought it. I let him show it off on his sales page. I think you know who I'm talking about, really close friend of mine. But I'm glad he bought it because that means I didn't have to spend money. But I think this was a good pickup. $450 is much more than the Blood Red Eyes UKG 85 that sold. I think that one sold at auction for $365-ish. This one sold for $450. I think it's worth every penny of that because it's just not common to find this one, especially graded by AFA with the light orange eyes. So congratulations. You know who you are. You know who you are. I'm glad he bought it, though, because that means I didn't buy it. Now, here's a loose graded AFA 85 AT-AT driver, just the common Hong Kong variant. That one sold at auction for $255 plus $10 shipping. Brand new case style. I think that was a pretty good buy. That same seller also had this one, the TIE Fighter Pilot, in the new case style, but it had the clear view case up top. And so this one sold for $120 on 12 bids. Now, this is me speculating. I have nothing to base this on in terms of recent data. But I would bet that if this had the classic view label without that label up top that looks kind of bulky and cumbersome, and it just detracts from the eye appeal, in my opinion. If it had the alternative classic view labeling, I bet it would have sold for a lot more than 120 bucks. I bet it would have sold for closer to $200. But I could be wrong. I could be wrong. But anyway, that just gives you a couple of data points on a couple of nice loose graded figures. This one I've got to talk about because I have no idea if it's legitimate or not. And the market seemed to think it was partially or potentially legitimate. Now, it was labeled as a pre-production paint sample Hoth Wampa. It was in a sealed baggie. It sold for $577. Now, the seller included some photos of some AFA examples in a similar style baggie. And you can see some photos here where it's labeled as Paint App Pre-Production Baggies. And I guess the seller, or excuse me, the owner of this particular example had them all encased together. I don't know. But anyway, this seller said that it's from that same lot. Now, 577 is a high number, don't get me wrong, for a baggied Wampa. But and it seems like this is the kind of item that you wouldn't fake, right? Why go to the trouble of doing a fake pre-production Wampa? That's just not a character or a figure that would be commonly faked, I guess. And you can see here that the paint apps do look a little bit different, in my opinion, on the horns. And here's a nice close-up here. It looks a little lighter. It's more of a translucent brown than the actual figure. And you can see here, this one sold. It was unpainted for this sold example. Unpainted eyes and mouth versus this one, and so I don't know. It's just tough to say. You know, the horns on this one, it's a darker brown. So I think that's what potentially kept the price down, is that, hey, I'm not sure if this is legit or not. but it still sold for $577. So clearly there were a few collectors out there that were willing to take a chance on it. It looks legit to me. As you know, again, what do I know? But this one is easy to spot as a pre-production item because the claws, the eyes, and the mouth are not painted, and it's a much darker, deeper brown to those horns versus this one where everything's painted. So who knows? But I did want to point it out because it did sell at auction. So clearly there are at least a few collectors out there rolling the dice on it to see what happens. A couple of loose graded R2s sold from this seller. This was an AFA 80 Plus solid dome first 12 R2D2. That one sold for $338 plus shipping. And then that same seller had an AFA 85 R2D2 with sensor scope. That sticker on the R2 looked really clean, so you know, nice high grade. That one sold for $203.50. That was a great deal. That was a really great deal. But anyway, just a couple of R2D2 loose graded data points for those of you looking. I thought this was a pretty good deal too. This one was listed. It was a UKG 80% Cloud Car Pilot Hong Kong COO with the brand new case style. I had this on my watch list and I almost threw out an offer a couple of times, but I'm in no buy June July. Usually I do no buy July. This time I'm doing no buy June July. So I'm trying not to buy anything. I bought 2 comics so far this month, and it is now the 20th. I've got 10 more days to go. 10 more days, and then I'm good. I've been really good, though. Anyway, this one I think was a good deal. It was best offer accepted. I didn't look up the final sales price, but I think for a nice high-grade Cloud Car Pilot with the brand new case style, I just love these new UKG cases. They are just top-notch, top-notch. Really, really nice example there. This was another interesting baggie, and I've got a few baggies after this Luke. Now, this is the Made in Meccano factory free sample Luke baggie. And a number of different characters, they would seal them in these baggies, and they put a sticker on them with this bright orange sticker that says, gratuit, you know, this one's made in Macau. Now, the sticker on this one is damaged, heavily damaged. So that kept the price down. And you can see it sold for 120 pounds or 146 US dollars, but it's labeled as factory sealed. And so, you know, again, I think if this was a near mint baggie, you could probably get closer to $700 or $800 for this baggie. The only one I've got like this is a Bossk baggie that's graded AFA 80 plus. But I was tempted on this one. I had this one on my watch list for a couple of weeks before it finally did sell. And again, it's a low grade baggie, just given the damage to that sticker. But you can very clearly see that it was the free gratuit, or however you pronounce it, Meccano baggie, and it did have some damage too right here to the actual baggie from where someone tried to take off that sticker. But if you get one of these, don't try to take off that sticker, because that's a very, very valuable baggie type to get those Meccano baggies. Another baggie. This was a tape sealed Nikto. You can see the tape here. The tape was kind of iffy, you know, so that probably kept the price down. That sold for $53 on 3 bids. And that same seller had this one. This is a heat sealed B-wing baggie, and you can see on the back there that the writing, the Kenner Made in Hong Kong print is in pretty good shape. It's not perfect, but it's in pretty good shape, and it looked to be perfectly sealed. Nice heat sealed baggie. That sold for $68. So, you know, I think baggies are an interesting line. I bought a couple here recently, but you know, it's just a little tricky with those tape sealed baggies. This was one I had on my watch list for a while, and for those of you who ever look at items from this seller, Geronimo, he is on Facebook. So if you go to his Facebook page and send him a private message, he can give you a much better deal than on eBay. So somebody did buy this though, and it sold for 160 pounds or 194 US dollars. But go to his Facebook sales page, which is Geronimo Toys. Send him a PM, and he can give you a quote on a much cheaper away from eBay. And I've done that a couple of times with Geronimo, and he's a pretty good seller. I've always had pretty nice items, but this was a UKG 90% AT-AT Commander. I love these cases for the baggies with UKG. I just think they present really nicely and kind of fluff up the baggie, so to speak. It just looks really nice, but they are bigger though. So, you know, if you have standard size loose graded cases, it can be a little bit cumbersome versus displaying smaller cases. But let's finish it off here with mainly, I believe, mint on card items that are ungraded. This is a 65 back Return of the Jedi Luke, very light yellowing. It did have a crease there above the hang tab. along with the Mervin's price sticker. That one sold for $330 on 3 bids with free shipping. That's a really nice deal for a Luke Skywalker Jedi Knight. Next up, we had a 31 back B Lando. It's advertised as being in 80 condition. I would probably concur with that. It's just light edge wear and things like that. Nice clear blister. $246.50 is a pretty great price. You can see some wear around the hang tab there, but pretty good shape overall. It'd probably be maybe like a 75 plus, but $246.50 is a great deal for that. Here's another one that was on my watch list. This was a 48 back offerless Bossk. I believe that's the 48 back A, if memory serves. That one sold for $364, and that was a clear blister, clear-ish anyway, and that was a great deal. It just had a little bit of wear around the hang tab. Next up, we had a 48 back B. This one was graded. It was AFA 80, and you can see the free Revenge of the Jedi sticker there on the card back. The 48Cs, I think, were printed. The 48Bs had the actual sticker on the card back, and that's a nice Yoda. That one sold for $11.75. Wow, that's a big number, but that was a gorgeous clear blister Yoda for that money. Same seller had this one, the 77 back A brown snake Yoda. It was AFA 80, yellowed blister, unpunched. That one sold for $7.95. So big boy money prices for some high grade Yodas. Here was an AFA 85 yellowed blister squid head. This one was the 65 back A. 290 subgrades though, so very high grade with the Toys R Us price sticker, unpunched. $230. $230 is a great price, I think, for a yellowed blister squid head. Here was a nice example of the snaggletooth. This was the 77 back, and it looked to be a clear blister. Yeah, maybe just slight yellowing, but that blister is in fantastic condition. It was punched with a KB price tag on there, $449. That's a pretty decent price there for a very slightly yellowed blister snaggletooth. Transition card for Lobot, and then we're going to dig into some awesome tri-logos that sold. But this is a tough one to find, and it was in pretty decent shape. I was tempted on this one too, folks. $260.99 free shipping. Great deal. That's a great deal for a very nice Lobot. And now we're going to dig into some beautiful tri-logos that sold from a number of different sellers, all of them, I think, in the UK. This was the tri-logo Lobot, and it looked to be in pretty good shape. It did have a crease up there in the upper right-hand corner. KB Toys 2-for-1 sticker, but look how beautiful that blister is on that tri-logo Lobot. 310 pounds or 377 US dollars. This was another really nice high-grade example of the Luke with the cape on, and you can find this one with the cape tucked behind him in like a little sealed with either a plastic bag or like the green sticker band that goes around the cape. But this one was on. I think that's how mine is. But this one sold for 697 pounds or 850 US dollars. Big price there. A really nice tri-logo Han trench coat. That was unpunched with the KB Toys price sticker. That sold for 230 pounds or 280 US dollars. Next up was a heavy hitter. This one is the tri-logo Gamorrean Guard. Wow. But that blister was in fantastic condition. That is tough to find. A little bit of a ding there in the lower left-hand corner, but that's probably like a 75 plus condition. And the price reflected it, 646 pounds or 786 US dollars. That's a tough one to find. You don't see this one come up much, but this is like 75 plus, maybe 70, 75 plus conditions in that range. Yeah, I'd say 70 with that wear to the hang tab and the light crease on the back, but that one just has really gone up in price. You don't see it come up very often. A couple of different FX7s. The Tale of Condition. Wow, I could not believe the price difference. This one sold for 272 pounds. It was unpunched and in pretty good condition overall, except for the figure itself. As you can see there, the arm had broken off inside the blister, and that kept the price down. It sold for 272 pounds, 331 US dollars, versus this one where the arm was intact and also very high grade and unpunched. That one sold for big money, 907 US dollars or 745 pounds. So that just shows you how much condition can play into what a final sales price is at auction for the exact same item. But wow, some beautiful tri-logos. I hope some of you were able to pick some of them up. Awfully tempting, but I stayed away. I was very good for once. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll be back soon.